Hey, what's up, good people? It's Jay Ray, the co-host of Q Points, and I wanted to come to you because there are two really important ways that you can support our show. One is by subscribing to it wherever you listen to or watch your podcasts. Q Points is pretty much everywhere. The other thing that you can do is you can visit us on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, and on Podchaser, and you can leave us a star rating. Please rate us 5 stars because you know you love Q Points. And on Apple Podcasts and on Podchaser, you can actually leave us a written review. It's not required, but it really does help to spread the word about the show, and it helps people to discover it as they're looking for new podcasts to listen to. We're always appreciative of you supporting Q Points. We thank you so much for all that you've done for us so far, and enjoy the show.
Yes, good evening and welcome back. I am DJ Sir Daniel.
And my name is Jay Ray, sometimes known by my government as Johnny Ray Cornegay III. What's happening, good folks?
Welcome back, and this is the show we love to call Q Points, your safe space for intelligent and classy talk regarding Black music and all things Black artistry and the artists that we love, and just we love to show people love on this show. And we also like to talk about fun topics. J Ray, how has the week been?
The week has been busy, but I am good. Yeah, that's it. That's all I got. I'm happy to be here. We're gonna talk about some fun stuff tonight, and it's a good time.
Yeah.
How has your week been, Sir Daniel?
It's been good. It's been busy. Yeah, child, I really needed a nap when I came home, but didn't have enough time to do that. But I got the energy because, like you said, this is going to be a great show topic. First of all, it's been a while since it's been just been you and me.
I know, right? That's like super fun. This feels like old school Q Points. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So y'all get to just
Throwback
see our
Q points.
faces. Throwback Q Points. Let the folks know, y'all.
Absolutely, absolutely. Hey, before we get started, I want to show some love, send some love and some positive energy to one of my favorite artists, Roxanne Shante.
Absolutely.
You know, if you heard, her mother, Miss Peggy, passed away recently. Miss Peggy, if you follow the career of Roxanne, of Shante, you know Miss Peggy is a very prominent figure in her life. Of course, she's her mother, but if you saw the movie Roxanne, and Miss Peggy was portrayed by the beautiful actress Nia Long, that was a very accurate and strong portrayal of what life was like for a lot of Black women in that era, living in the projects. And if you were a single mother at that time, raising children, you know, the one scene that sticks out to me is the scene where the girls, Shantae and her sisters, waited outside on the park bench, waiting for their father to show up. And Miss Peggy was like, you know what? I'm gonna let y'all go ahead and get dressed up and dolled up, but he ain't coming. And I told she was trying to teach them a hard lesson. Well, she didn't want to teach them a hard lesson, but they had to learn it anyway. But that was such a great and accurate portrayal of Miss Peggy, and I really feel for Shantae, and I just wanted to send her some love and let her know that, you know, one of her number one fans was thinking about her and just praying for the best for her and her family.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Shout out to Roxanne Shante and her family. I did hear about that last week. So, yeah.
Well, J Ray, a lot has happened over the past week. A lot of, Black men in music, and especially R&B, have really been on the tip of everybody's lips these past few days, this past couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. And it's so funny because we're talking about Black men's imagery and clothing that they, in music, and the things that have been changing, because now we're in hoochie daddy season.
We are. Well, okay. Yeah. So I have we'll get into this because I have questions about hoochie daddy season. I felt like it was hot it was hot for like a week, and
Uh
now
huh.
all of the hubbub has like died down. So I'm wondering what it feels like. It feels like it was a hot Twitter thing, and now it's just like, nah, we good.
Yeah, so you're right. I believe it was hot for a minute on Twitter as far as the memes are concerned.
Mm-hmm.
All your influencers were pulling out their shorts so they can make content.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, that did happen. But it brought up, I think it has awakened a bigger conversation, because I think it's like the perfect storm.
Mm-hmm.
We have Hoochie Daddy season. We have this reemergence of dance music
Yes.
from two very prominent artists. One being one of the premier rap stars of the
Mm-hmm.
past decade, and then also we have oh well. I don't want to bring that up yet because it's going to be a question that I have for you,
Okay.
but it's real juicy, and it has a lot to do with this whole what are black men supposed to look like, and
Mm-hmm.
why are we constantly policing what other brothers are wearing,
Right.
especially in the black community, as and more so in hip hop music and fashion. And I thought it would be fun. Like you and I, we saw this one picture that kind of spanned decades of hip hop, almost
Yes.
40 years of hip hop, and also the way we looked throughout the years. And I
Yeah.
thought it was just really interesting, and it added to this conversation as well. I guess my first question to you, J. Ray, then, like, how do you feel about hip hop coming out of the gate in its inception, being an art form about freedom,
Mm-hmm.
now all of a sudden is being policed and put into a box as far as how you express yourself and the way you look? Because hip hop at one point, like we said, in its inception,
Mm-hmm.
was built on freedom of expression.
Mm-hmm.
And here we are trying to douse people's freedom of expression within the culture.
It's interesting. You're absolutely right. The foundation of hip hop was the opportunity for black and Latino folks to be able to express themselves in a fully homegrown, innovative way. Yes. And at the same time, even in the earliest years, I think we saw some of that same policing, right? So there are certain outfits that you could rock in the early years, right?
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about what some of those different looks were when we get into the conversation. But then there comes a point where it's like Run DMC comes along and it's like, oh, we can't look like that anymore. We have to look like this. And I remember watching a classic documentary. Of course, the name is escaping me, but I think it was Dougie Fresh that was on talking about like we can't look like the old school guys because they look soft. And this is in like 1985, and I'm like,
Right.
and I think we're always in this this perpetual cycle, particularly with black men and the kind of the conversations that we have of as the culture moves, the the old heads push back and be like, y'all not being masculine enough.
Yeah.
And it just keeps happening over and over again. And then what will happen is we're in this hoochie daddy cycle, right? And then we know like 2 years from now, it's going to be like a regular thing. First of all, I've been wearing, you know this about me. I done had my shorts on. It ain't no big thing. It's like, child, they just above the knee. It's all right. I got thighs. It's all right. I don't expect you
So
to wear long ass shorts.
listen, first of all, those aren't shorts; those are capri pants.
They are
Like there
complete.
was in the early 2000s, like we were really bugging in the 2000s where we had on shorts that came down to our ankles. That looked ridiculous. But as far as I'm concerned, so like we grew up in the 70s and the early 80s and
Mhm.
whatnot. So we saw our dads, our uncles, we saw Ecstasy from Houdini. We saw them with shorts up to their thighs. we saw the basketball players had shorts that crept all the way up to
All the
them,
way up.
all the way up to like right beneath the crease of their buttocks. So we grew up on that. So it's really not that big of a deal to us.
Right.
This is just a little bit of history repeating itself to us.
Mm-hmm.
But these young people. I think a lot of these young people. Sorry,
you
guys,
are old. You are old head, Sir Daniel.
The OG. But yeah, I think people a lot of times I think people it's a slow news day one, and on Twitter, on the social medias, people like to argue about anything.
Mm-hmm.
So, but hey, listen, I'm enjoying the moment. As hot as it is here in Georgia, listen, you look crazy if you have on some corduroy pants in this weather. You need to free them thighs. Free them.
So one of the things that has, of course, come up this week in the R&B world, the verses between Mario and Omarion happened last week. Not to dissect the verses itself, but there was a lot of commentary on the performances or lack thereof of the performances in terms of these black men. And then juxtaposing that to Just Today, Usher's Tiny Desk, which is brilliant. Yes. And you actually found, what is the tweet that you found?
So Sean Stockman, beloved Sean Stockman, member of beloved R&B group, OG group, Boys to Men,
and my frat brother.
That too, and your frat. He posted a tweet earlier this week, and it says that R&B has lost their identity because it felt like it had to compete with the bravado of the hip hop world, because labels stopped supporting the perception of a well-dressed black man. They started more supporting the idea of a thug. Because labels stopped supporting the perception of black men being more than displaying a thug image. So here again, where is this a politics of? Some people want to say this is respectability politics. Some people want to say this is, just young people ain't gonna do right. How do you feel about that statement by your frat?
I feel like that statement is accurate, actually. So but it's layered. So I do think that, just like with anything that had to do with anything that has to do with the music industry, that the industry decides what images to kind of push, and you will give us a lot of that. But I do think that the audience responded to R&B artists getting a little edgier and a little harder. I think Jodeci was our first. And it's funny that Sean Stockman would make this, because Jodeci and Boyz II Men emerged at the exact same time, and Jodeci was kind of like the anti Boyz II Men in a lot of ways, right? You know what I'm saying? And so women responded to that. You know what I'm saying? Like, women responded to that, and I think so much of what my dad used to say, this thing when I was a kid, that if the women like it, the dudes are gonna do it.
Yes, absolutely.
So I think it's a little bit of the music industry deciding what they were going to push, but I also think it was the audiences, particularly the women who were buying these records, responding to it. If they said, "I'm not going for this whole image, this whole look, this whole thing," we wouldn't be having this conversation. They would have flipped the script.
Yes, I agree. And I also would say that there was a shift. Shout out to They Reminisce Over You crew checking in.
Here last week.
Our Canadian cousins in the building. There was a definite shift. It's funny that we're talking about this and R. Kelly just finally got his sentencing of 30 years.
Yes,
he
Lord.
was he was part of that shift.
He was part of
You
that
know,
shift.
he was part of that. Then fast forward a decade later, then you had the who was that, Jagged Edge.
Yep.
You still had them coming out, and they portrayed. Now they did both.
Mm-hmm.
They were suited and booted, but then they would give you a leather vest with no shirt underneath moment,
Mm-hmm.
and their pants sagging moment. So me personally, I think with everything there's a lack of balance. I think there's, we're always on the extreme of something. Everything, we do something and then it goes to the extreme, and then next thing you know, it burns out and people are like, okay, what's next? We're done with this. They get tired of it.
So one of the things, if there's one thing that I think has gotten lost, so it's not just the imaging pieces, because I do think that is part of it. I do think diversity of voices, and when I say diversity of voices, I mean sound and timbre of voices have gotten lost. Notes, the ability to be able to do certain things. We, at this point, I think we've talked about this before, there is no Teddy Pendergrass on popular R&B radio. There's no Teddy Pendergrass sound, right? That kind of very, that particular sounding voice. We don't get a lot of that. So I think that's gotten lost in this. And I also think back to your point of balance, like this idea of sensuality, everything seems very sexual all the time. I do think Tank and some other, even though he's got a bunch of sexual songs, I do think there are some R&B artists that have toed the line, but I do think I want to hear more songs like the songs that Babyface wrote on regular R&B radio. I hear them on classic R&B radio, but I don't hear it if I turn to my contemporary R&B hip hop station. I don't necessarily hear that type of stuff. Those diversity of voices and the types of things that people are singing about. I think that's gotten lost too.
Yeah. So you're absolutely right. And I think, what are the young ladies going to dance to at prom? Nobody has a Cry For You or I think it was DJ Artistic. He tweeted earlier this week. He was like, you can't even, sometimes it's hit or miss if you throw on Jodeci's Come and Talk to Me.
Oh my God, it's great.
That used to be a thing, that everybody would sing along to. Now it's hit or miss. The audiences, they're getting younger and they're not responding to that kind of sentiment and that kind of beat anymore. So they're responding, like you said, to whatever's pushed out there the most, and that's what they're receptive to. And so I don't know. We're constantly evolving here. We're trying to evolve, and we do see that a lot of the ways that we grew up with are fading away. And I think it's hard for us to accept. I'll admit that it's hard for me to accept on some levels, and I don't know. I just think there's a quality thing kind of missing. But go ahead.
No, I'm bigging up. This is me bigging up what you're saying, because I do think that even taking in the pieces of like the BET Awards that I took in this week, there's something. Okay,
can't put my finger on it.
It's the quality. Okay, Sir Daniel, you remember. They reminisce. So we're losing recipes. Absolutely. There was something you could not get on a stage and be whack. Not on a stage like that, because you were getting on that stage with your idols, with people who were going to bring it most of the time. Our idols have had their moments, but there was a standard that was like, oh, if I'm going to get on this stage in front of this many people and expose myself to them, I need to not miss a beat. My sound needs to be on point. My band needs to be on point. everything's got to be together. And I feel like that has also been something that has completely gone out. Because I was watching some of those performances like, how long did y'all practice this
Yeah.
exactly?
Things seem a lot haphazard. Just a lot of haphazardness going on. A lot of people, things being blamed on technology. And yes, stuff happens
It
in
does.
the technology. It happens. That's true. But I don't know. There is a basic, like you said, you weren't getting on that stage until, let's not even talk about the people that performed at BET.
Mm-mm.
Let's reframe this with Usher and his Tiny Desk performance, like you were saying. This is somebody who was able to take songs that are 20 plus years old, restructure them, add some flavor. You could tell he put a lot of time into the practice and the rehearsal of what he's going to perform. There was no, even, Usher has shown time and time again that he is a consummate performer. Usher is in our age group. So there's no excuse, It can be done. Let me say this. It can be done. You can have some perfection in your craft and your live performances. It can be done. And it can be done with a very minimal band, and you can dress however you can be dressed up to, with your neck completely covered up, or you could be dressed in a t-shirt and some short shorts. As long as that voice is giving what it's supposed to give, and that performance is emoting and it's making us feel something, it's evoking emotions and nostalgia in us, you're A1. You're good. You're golden.
Absolutely. And shout out to our brother Mike Bryant.
What up,
Yes.
Mike?
I judge an artist by the way they play live as well. And that's a very broad conversation for me, cuz I love so many artists that don't have that, or might be singers but they're not great singers, or they but they get what they do and they do that thing really well, and I'm like, okay, more of that please. You take some pride in the thing that you do. And so I think in all of this, as we're kind of in this new moment, I do think it is important that we try and get these recipes right, because I think that is it. Like, as I don't know, we have to make sure that the folks coming up understand how important it is to be really professional when you hop on stage.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. What does it mean to be a professional performer?
Mm-hmm.
And I get it. Some people think, oh, that was the old way of doing things. And like you said earlier, the young bulls are always going to want to buck against the older bulls, and that's going to happen.
There's a place for that. I mean, there we
Yeah.
honestly, we that's what hip hop was at the beginning, right? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Mm-hmm.
there was a point in time where rappers couldn't even be on the stages that they're on now. They were not allowed to be up there,
That's
right?
right.
So,
Because of that appearance, because
yep.
they looked threatening,
Mm-hmm.
the posturing, the stances, the way they walked was a threat to some people. I do you remember like episodes where of these award shows where you had rap categories announced, and you would have like Public Enemy come out on stage with a Kumo D,
Mm-hmm.
and Kumo D would be suited and booted
Yep.
in a tuxedo
Yep.
and his pillbox
Yep.
hat, and Chuck D and Flavor Flav are,
Yep.
yeah, boy,
Yep.
the way that you look and expect Chuck D and Flavor Flav to look, and there was always that juxtaposition. However, they were able to exist in the same space, and nobody said anything about it. There was always this policing. Mike, I'm very glad you brought that up. It just reminds me of, again, with regards to policing black men and their appearances. I have to admit, when 3 6 Mafia won their Oscar
Mm-hmm.
and they hopped up on the stage to win their
Mm-hmm.
awards, I was kind of like, there was a little bit of cringe. For me. I
Mm-hmm.
felt a little cringe, and it was because of the way, I was like, y'all, please don't get up there and,
We felt like,
and
oh,
just
black folks, like, please, rappers, don't get up there and like
and
scare the white
misrepresent
people.
us.
Don't.
Yeah. And then, part of my hood, I lost some hood pass points for that because of, I guess those were my respectability fears coming out. But that moment, rappers winning Oscars, that moment sticks out to me for that particular reason.
Mm-hmm.
And while we're still talking about rappers, and I know we said this, we called the show "Who You Calling a Hoochie Daddy,"
Mm-hmm.
and we're talking about the evolution of the way black men are perceived and how they look and how they present themselves in the art and the culture. This week, I don't know if you watched a show called Pink Valley,
Oh, P
but
Valley?
this
No, I
week,
haven't. I have never
P
seen the show.
Valley, P
I've never
Valley.
seen the show, but I've heard about what's happening on the show. Yes.
Okay, so this week, and I don't have Showtime either.
Mm-hmm.
There's too many other platforms. They all taking my money. I can't, but I don't have Showtime. But I have seen plenty of the posts, and this week's episode has really ruffled some feathers because of a sex scene
Mm-hmm.
between two masculine presenting men,
Mm-hmm.
black men on this show, and a lot of people, a lot of your, Chitlin Circuit comedians are talking about how they don't want to see that. They're not, because they're not used to it, but they're able to digest two women on the screen. But somebody brought up a great point, was that this was probably jarring to them because these two black men were masculine presenting.
Mm-hmm.
One is portraying a rapper on the show, and portrays that thug,
Mm-hmm.
that gangster thug image on the screen, and he's a rapper and all that, but he's carrying on this relationship with another man, behind closed doors. And so it just completely it ruffled a lot of feathers, and it just made me think about how we again are making these assumptions and making these judgments based on what you think somebody is supposed to look like.
So I'm gonna pull up. We're gonna start with the images, but I want to make a point about this.
Okay.
I'm gonna go back here before we do that. So I hope by the time we get to the end of this, that folks who tune in also, I think that's one of the things we absolutely have to unlearn. Like, it is so constricting to have to conform to these very rigid ideas of the way we can show up in the world. And Mike actually talked about that when he was on the show a couple of weeks ago, right? Like needing to be able to be free, right?
Yes.
And so folks, yeah, they're in their feelings about P Valley, but the reality is this is a truth for people. And folks gotta get used to it. I think that's one of the things Patrick Ian Polk said, like, watch or don't, but you need to get into it. You need to get into it because it's going to be happening more. And we just need to live in that space. And I think when we go through these, because I think we're going to, let's start, because I think we're this is a good place. So, because this first image,
Yes.
I need to give some background, by the way, on this illustration before we go too far into this. I'm pulling this up because one of the things, Sir Daniel, I didn't want us to do was like, let's talk about this graphic. But apparently this graphic was part of a campaign for a company called K1X. And they were doing a series of, this was for some t-shirts. So they're like a sportswear company. And so they had an artist, I couldn't find the artist that did it, but they had an artist kind of do this graphic. So that's where the foundation is. But
Got it.
So when we take a look at this particular era, and really the era that we're talking about, for those that can't see this, there is a an individual, a caricature of a black man on the screen. They have a syringe in their hand, which is kind of representing like the heroin era.
Era.
But they're wearing like their star boots, you know what I'm saying? They like their leather and you know all of that. This was a very real, when I remember hip hop, even though Rapper's Delight didn't look like this, but as I remember hip hop ascending to its popular era, this is the first
Yeah.
era of hip hop I remember.
Because those participants were fans of George Clinton. And so their look was based on a lot of the P Funk All Stars look. So they were leather clad, tight leather, tight spandex, the boots, the feathers. You know, African Bambaataa was known to come out in complete Indian headdress. Yes, some of them look like characters of the village people, but all of those things were part of the times that they were living in, and so they were reflecting what they grew up on and what they perceived as dope and as fly, because George Clinton was the dopest. George Clinton was fly to them, so they wanted to portray that, and so that was why hip hop looked like that in the very first iterations of hip hop. And then a lot of the especially with the break dancers and the battling on the streets, a lot of the kids that wanted to participate in hip hop couldn't afford to dress like that. So then they went on to a more streetwear look, which is probably the next picture that you're gonna pull up.
Yeah, this is your LL Cool J. This is 1984, 85. You know, you
Yeah.
have Run DMC is now on the scene. LL is on his way. And in fact, LL is written on this jacket. LL Cool J in 85, 86, and 87 truly did kind of set a standard for how rappers looked. So you had the Adidas track suits, you know what I'm saying? The shell toes, which actually was from Run DMC too. But you know, the Kangol, absolutely. And this bravado. Like I think this is the era, because I think moving out of kind of that first iteration, you know, the message is really one of the earliest songs where the kind of MC is like truly the star. Like there's a solo MC who's like the star of this song. Whereas before you had
Yes.
groups where there was like a lot of rappers, or the DJ was always the person that people was supposed to be focused on, and then the rappers were kind of doing a thing. But there was always like a group thing. So you had, you know, the Treacherous Three or like the Funky Four plus one more. But then even though Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five was a group, Melly Mel was really the person that was doing the message and kind of set a standard. So LL
Yes.
became like a breakout solo rap star where he was out front. And so he kind of drove everything and folks wanted to look like LL.
And can I also build on that in saying that a lot in that era of the b boy with the gold chain, the Chuck jewelry, the expensive, those things were expensive. Those tracksuits were not cheap. The sneakers were not cheap, and because a lot of that imagery came from the drug dealers that were very popular. A lot of those drug dealers were the ones who fronted the money to have shows, to have these rappers come through, and so that's who the rappers were really fashioning themselves after, were the outposts, the people, the street kings that were running the business at the time and keeping them afloat. That's when you had your Dapper Dan come through, and he was making outfits for a lot of the drug dealers as well, and then the rappers were copying off of that. So yeah, again, it's this perception of black manhood that we want we want to portray some type of power. We've always been wanting to portray some type of power, and not for nothing, in the crack era, the drug dealer was the pinnacle of what power in the hood looked like.
Absolutely. And so, and if we think about this particular era that we're talking about, these folks were looking back on the era before, which wasn't like an era before them. Literally, it's a couple of years. Hip hop was moving so fast that this is maybe a few years prior to them, right? They're looking back on that like, oh, those guys over there, you know what I'm saying, were soft.
So long ago.
It was so long ago, right? I'm like, bro, that was like 3 years ago.
Right.
But looking down upon them and what they were portraying as what masculinity is, that was already happening. So it's crazy. And I do think, to your point, Sir Daniel, that power piece and what we perceive as powerful. And actually, as we go through each of these, we'll probably end up having the same conversation, because it's like the flip of a switch. It's like, okay, this is the thing that you do to ascend. And it's like, oh, now it's this thing. This person has come in and changed it. So now you do this to ascend. And it all comes down to, what's the thing that's hot that's going to put me in the top position? Right. And so we then move. This is an interesting era. This, to me, so what's on the screen for those who are listening is we've now moved to kind of the conscious era. So we're clearly in the late 80s, right? Late 80s, early 90s. In the conscious, I'm using quote unquote conscious era, because so many of those brothers were doing a lot of stuff that was not empowering. Right. But their songs were empowering. So you got a brother on the screen with a pen in hand and a book. He's probably writing rhymes. You know, he's reading, or he's reading.
Because knowledge is power, my brother.
You know what I'm saying? He got a not quite a fade, but it's a box, you know, and a medallion, you know, because this is the era. And no shoes, y'all. They literally drew this brother with no shoes.
I wonder if that was to highlight the trying to break away from the consumerism. Oh, I'm thinking, okay, so no shoes and also no gold jewelry, because the gold jewelry got replaced by the leather medallions that had like Africa on it, the red, black, and green and stuff like that, because there was this moment in hip hop where people were getting killed over gold chains and sneakers.
That's the key. You are absolutely on it, because I'm like, oh, we had then, because by then the crack era was out of here by then.
Out of control, yeah.
And so once again, we're at this point where brothers are thinking survival, but also it became lucrative to portray this kind of image. So for a period of time, you know, the native tongues are emerging. You have, of course, PE is becoming superstars at this point. And it is becoming fashionable to talk about Black power, which is different than the eras before. But once again, it's about, you know, positioning. It's one of them things that happen. That's one of my favorite eras of hip hop. I got to be honest. It's just one, I think I was just coming of age. It was when I fell in love with hip hop, but also I do think there was a lot of variety.
Absolutely. There was a lot of variety. And I think also when you bring up the image was being a lot more, making a lot of us more palatable and acceptable in your homes. Guess where you saw the most of those images? Every Thursday night on NBC. Who was piping that image in? We saw those images on the Cosby Show and A Different World.
Absolutely.
We saw that marriage of, yes, this is a hip hop generation, but they're also in school trying to get knowledge. This is, we've adapted the hip hop look, but we're still, I think they were trying to marry the two. And then again, I know that respectability politics, and I say that with quotes because that comes up as well because of what we know about Bill Cosby and his attitudes towards,
right.
The hip hop generation and the way we were dressing and everything. So it's so interesting. All of the things were working together and kind of against each other at the same time.
I'm curious to know, for the folks that are watching, what are the eras that come up to you as kind of like eras that you sit in, that we've gone through so far. I do think I like this era as well, because I do think there was I feel like there was a balance in what brothers were able to do at that point. Visually, I think we're in a time where that's the most free, which is cool. But I do think this was kind of the starting point for that, where I do think it was okay to not do too much. It was okay to not have the big rope chain and have, and do all of these other things that were considered masculine. You could also be viewed as masculine and not do that. So, okay. So that's funny. This graphic don't technically have the shiny suit era, but we're going to end up talking about it in the conversation track. So that's a funny one. So, next up, oh, wow. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we almost forgot about this era, the bang bang shoot 'em up, because
Man.
this was funny because this era was two-sided, right? You have, so on this graphic, what is portrayed here is the Timberlands, oversized jeans, the camouflage jacket with the hoodie, the 40-ounce bottle with the gun, the spliff hanging from the lip, and the Scully on top. That imagery, because I call that I call it the Onyx era.
It is.
Because everybody was trying to be grimy and gangster, and then, but at the same time, there was kind of the backpacker era was was coinciding at the same time.
Yep.
And the backpackers were grimy also. However, they were trying to be intelligent with it.
Right. So I actually think what's interesting about this era is I think there's some eras in between this graphic and the next one that we can end up talking about, because what you're describing is, I think out of this moment where things got really dark, because they have the New York image displayed here, but there was a LA version of this image.
Absolutely.
And a Bay Area version of this exact same thing that was kind of happening at this time. We're talking, the early to mid 90s era, where everything got really dark for hip hop. And we've talked about this this often, and Sir Daniel, what I'm realizing is we often talk about it as when the women had to like dress up and then all of a sudden they had to get hard again. I realized that men had to do that too. And I never thought about it like that, because in 91, Kwame and a Father MC and a Heavy D could do all of these very specific things that weren't necessarily hard like the guys before, but they also had to like, we got to do a posse record and do a hard joint to let people know
that I'm about this business. Remember when Heavy D dropped "You Can't See What I Can See"?
You can't. You know what?
The imagery was him in the alleyway, the Scully, the leather jacket, the hoodies, and he's growling in the here we go. He upped the flow to make sure people knew that he wasn't soft. And that was again this whole I don't know where it came from, but all of a sudden everybody felt like they had to not show any vulnerability. They had to let you know that we're not punks. We are, don't think you can pull anything over on us. We're not soft. I'm still part of the hood. Because people were starting to make money, but also we were putting that pressure on each other to portray this. And I'm like, well, where did it come from? Where did the feeling of I have to show you that I am of the streets and I can blast you away, because there was a lot of gun talk as well. It's like, where did it come from? I don't know. I can't recall any outside pressure of us having to change these images. I'm just, I just cannot think of where that came from, where we had to harden the glamorized and clean cut look that we had.
Yeah. Or and the because once again, earlier on we were talking about there was a variety of things that you could do and be. I think in the era right before this, and I'm wondering, and I don't know the answer to this because I wasn't in the music industry at this particular point, but I do wonder if this is a result. There's always been the rumors of the infamous meeting that happened that was flipping the switch on what hip hop could be. And it was involving, the prison industrial complex and all this.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if there was some of that crept in that said, here is where things are moving heavy. You can't see what I can see. I distinctly remember, I'm a huge Master Ace fan. I would love to get him on the show because I would want to ask him about this. He could actually probably really shed light on it. So Master Ace's first record, amazing. You know what I'm saying? He's got 4-3 on it, which is basically the symphony, but just him. So none of the other guys and, me and the Biz and all of this stuff, right? But
classic, yeah.
Classic record. Take a look around. But then the second record comes. He's in, he moved over to Delicious Vinyl, but it's Master Ace Incorporated. It's called Slaughterhouse. And the
imagery is dark.
And Jeep Joint was my joint, but it was like a whole different energy. And it was in this era. You had a whole West Coast, and then he really leaned into the West Coast flavor with Sitting on Chrome, that record right after that.
Yeah.
So this masculine, like this tug that we have with what's considered masculine at these different points in time is crazy. It's just crazy. I never thought of all of this in kind of a line.
Yeah, I don't know, it's funny how a lighthearted, Twitter moment, meme moment of Hoochie Daddy season is really a callback to this storyline of what Black male masculinity, because Black male masculinity and imagery is linked to what kind of clothing we wear, and how a lot of that was powered or pressured through the music, especially hip hop music. Was there an Illuminati meeting, that said, hey, you guys are getting too conscious. You guys are becoming free and talking all this blackness. Why don't you relax and have your champagne, your what was it? Your Cristal,
a little cocaine,
a little coke, and party all night and take that.
White women walking in,
all of that. And come to your all white parties, and it's so funny that because that was the rise of course. Diddy, for all
this is let's go. Purposes, this is the perfect place to talk about the shiny suit era, which we don't have a graphic for.
A shiny suit, however.
No, go ahead. No, I was just saying we don't have a shiny suit era, because right now, okay, so the era next to this is actually after the shiny suit era. So this is kind of post shiny suit. So we're gonna come back to this, but I do think we need to spend right. So yeah, crunk, and we've now moved to the South. So I do think we need to talk about a couple of things there. But the shiny suit era and coming out of, to your point, the Backpacker era, which was one of my the Backpacker era produced so many dope records. For sure. You got all of your classic joints. I mean, Common's classics, De La had classics, Most Def's classic, Black Moon, all of the classics came out of there. And then Diddy showed up
and smoothed it out, had people dancing. It was just kind of funny because that's what's happening now. Diddy came through. Diddy brought all the disco samples,
Mm-hmm.
put women whispering on the records to give it that sexy sound, getting chicks to breathe on
Take that.
remixes,
Take that.
and showing flossing on the beach, with no shirt on, your shorts, and pouring champagne over people. And so it was like he completely took that off. He's like, hey, there's a whole world outside of what you guys are experiencing, which is not a bad thing, to expose a generation to new things, to new kinds of alcohol, well, to new kinds of ways of having fun, and commerce.
Mm-hmm.
And his whole thing was he wanted us to be able to go into those boardrooms and to start commanding money. And so he figured, hey, if I'm going to be in these boardrooms, I got to put on this suit. I want y'all to see the suit is, really dope, and you can look suited and booted too, and get your money.
Mm. Yeah, I agree. I agree that I don't, on its surface, I don't, this is an evolution. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Like, I think it was that time also produced a lot of fun music. I mean, we got artists out of that era. We wouldn't have Missy Elliott if it wasn't for the shiny suit era. We wouldn't have
totally,
Biggie if it wasn't for the shiny suit era. You know what I'm saying?
totally. And if it wasn't for that era, a lot of these rappers that have evolved and grown up these 25 years, these 25 plus years, now have music that stands the test of time, that they're able to perform for, these huge audiences now, and they're still able to tour. This is what, the Rolling Stones are able to do
Mm-hmm.
60 years later. This is what hip hop is trying to do, and that shiny suit music era is allowing them to do that.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for bringing that. You are absolutely right. And also, this is interesting because the shiny suit era, and quite frankly, when we get to Kronk, I think it has some of those elements. But the shiny suit era, we were still calling back to our parents, right? So we could put
Mm-hmm.
on a More Money, More Problems, because it was like, oh, that's the Dinah Ross joint. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know
Mm-hmm.
that song.
Yep.
That MC Light remix got, you know what I'm saying? Upside Down on it. I know that
Yeah.
song. We were still calling back to the era prior, and that mattered.
It absolutely did. And yeah, it showed that we had business sense,
Mm-hmm.
because, instead of just being on stage, people were like, I need to be in the boardroom as
Mm-hmm.
well. And if I got to look the part in order to be in the boardroom, that's what I'm going to do.
Mm.
But again, it's perceived power, because
Perceived, right?
we're taking away, we're not gazing at Alpo and Supreme and those guys anymore. We're looking at Bill Gates. What is Bill Gates doing? What's he doing?
Right.
What is if God forgive me for saying his name? What Donald Trump? Because Trump ended up in a lot of people's rhymes
He
in those
did.
early
He
days
did.
because of his perceived
Mm-hmm.
image of money and power.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were starting to take our gaze away from that and kind of set it towards, look at these people that are really making the real money. And so again, it's almost like we had an identity crisis. Hip hop went through several changes of finding its identity, and this next era was just. Let me just say this: the early to the mid 2000s, that was a dark era as far as fashion is concerned, because we were looking crazy.
We got these long ass t-shirts on. It was weird, y'all. This was a weird time.
I, as a big and tall person, could not find any clothing because all of these normal size not normal, these smaller to medium sized people were shopping in big and tall, buying up all the extra long tees, buying up all the baggy clothes, buying up the throwbacks, the basketball jerseys. Um, the sisters, we haven't even talked about what women were wearing, but it was just a lot of choices were made.
Wait,
A lot
that's
of
her name.
choices
A
were
lot
made.
of choices were a lot of choices were made. This is our transitional point to where we are today. And those brothers were not for nothing, just started making crazy money. So the South took over. Like
The South really took over.
literally the South just kind of took over. So all the eras up until this point were pretty much were New York and LA. Now, the South child Andre got on that stage and said it. The South has something to say and said it. And ushered in this. Yeah, we ended up with the long white tees, and it was crazy. The music I felt like it rapidly changed.
We started dancing again. Because there was a moment where we stopped dancing and then we started dancing again.
Yeah, we started dancing, and I will tell you, so this I think is the first era where I was out of touch. Like I just stopped knowing who everybody was. Like,
Really?
like, cause I couldn't keep up. Like, it was just like, who is this where are they from? Who are they? Because, you had a view of what hip hop was, but prior to the mid 2000s, it was hard to I'm like, I don't know who this person is. So there are joints now that can come on from that era, and I might remember it, but I might not, because I was like almost 30 years old and still listening to what came out a decade before.
Yeah, I think the only reason my recollection might be a little bit stronger is because I was in radio and I was in the moment. So it was like I was hearing that stuff repetitively. If it was 6 o'clock and Greg Street was about to rock, you was going to hear what's the A Bay song? People like that, your little flips. I think this is when the Lil start to come out, your little flips. And your Ludacris, of course, was running things. And then, throw some D's on. All of those people that were making those regional hits that became huge hits. You had the rise of Crime Mob. And that the crunk era period, Little Scrappies, you had all those people coming into prominence and, like you said, injecting Southern flavor into the mix. So now we're going through a whole nother identity crisis of what it means to look a certain way. And then you had the great migration to Atlanta.
Yep. Everybody moved to Atlanta.
Everybody was moving here. And, I think the Hoteps kind of came to power in that era as well.
They did. It's kind of because so then you're blending, right? We're blending of eras. Even in that, you're taking a little bit from your 89 and be like, I hear what you're saying, but that's not quite it. But a little. And then this was the time where radio really did change, where all of a sudden New York, everybody sounds like they're from the South now.
Yep.
And that was not true before.
At all. Then we had the introduction of LimeWire and pirating music that way. Everything changed.
Yep.
Everything changed on how we consume music. And so everything had to be done a lot faster. Image was everything because everything had to be put out on videos quicker. Everything was happening a lot faster. And so therefore the meal became started to suffer. The flavor, the love and the flavor that used to be put into it started to suffer.
And then we kind of arrive here. I think this is pretty much still where we are. I think this is a good representation of where we are in this moment. You have a blending of flavors. You see a little bit of old, a little bit of new, lots of color, and
tight. It's tight.
Everything is tight. Everything is tight. And I find that interesting. I find that interesting, but I do think from a masculinity standpoint, I do think there's a little more freedom in how people can choose to show up if they choose to show up that way. They probably are going to hear from Boosie, but they can show up how they want to show up.
And it's so crazy. So we're in this era where they were pushing the envelope, which is what hip hop was supposed to do, was push the envelope. Then you had them putting on, this whole argument. I think the whole what's that young man's name that's in prison now?
From Atlanta,
Young Thug.
Young Thug, yeah. Uh-huh.
So when Young Thug appeared on his album wearing a whole couture gown, that just completely, a lot of people had meltdowns over that.
I wasn't on Twitter watching it back then, but I can imagine people were like the equivalent of falling out.
I mean, you had your OGs like, this would never have flown back in the day, and this is not hip hop and blah, just that same, I don't know, this identity crisis, and again this policing of what expression is supposed to look like, when policing is the complete opposite of what hip hop is.
Oh, yeah. I long for the time when, one, we can get back to diversity in the sound. So that's one thing. In the music itself, I do want to hear I want to hear more diversity and on radio. Let me just say that, because I do think there's a lot of people making a lot of stuff. I want to hear diversity on radio. And I also long for the time when we just be like, okay, homeboy want to wear a dress. It's cool. Like, what y'all stressed out about? Like, I don't. I'll be sitting over here like, why?
It's happening now.
Yeah.
When you see Santana, you see the Lil Nas X's, pushing their envelopes. People kind of for a hot second, then they're like, it's Lil Nas X, it's Santana. But then the flip side to that, again, is that makes people comfortable because, echoing back to the whole P Valley thing, that kind of image makes people comfortable because they feel like, oh, I know what gay looks like, or I know what a feminine man looks like. Whereas this whole thing, the juxtaposition of a masculine presenting gay man, kind of makes their minds just completely go berserk, and the synapses start misfiring, and they have a complete seizure. But yeah, so I think it's so many weird things going on at the same time. It's like, okay, this is acceptable because it makes me feel comfortable because I can easily identify all the queers and the gays and whatnot. But now I still got you DL masculine presenting guys that I think I'm cool with and I think I'm playing basketball with, and he don't look this way, he don't move that way. It's causing them to freak out again.
Hey, y'all need to come over to Q. Do y'all need to come over to Q Points and just sit here and just be like, we could. First of all, I just want folks to know, listen, brothers, it's not rocket science and it's not that serious. But going back to where I think a huge disservice, and this is kind of off topic but on topic, I do think that the way women respond to these things does inform the way dudes respond too. So I do think there's a little bit of that. And I haven't really been paying attention to all of the conversation around the P-Valley thing. I did see it. In fact, I sent a Facebook message. Jon Stewart is one of the actors that is on P-Valley that was part of that. And I was like, oh, John, I see you out here freeing the people. I haven't actually seen it yet. But so I haven't been privy to like all of the discussions, but I do know that, yeah, some people's heads were exploding and other people were just like, I guess we need to get, I know whoever it was that said, I'm just not used to seeing this.
Yeah.
So too bad, so sad. Like,
and you're probably lying. You're probably You're probably lying and you're capping for clicks.
Mm-hmm.
You're capping for clicks, for reactions, and you got what you wanted. The rest of us are like, just drink your water and mind your business. It'll be okay. Shout out to Jericho Alexander. I see you watching.
Shout out Jericho. Listen, oh my gosh, we have covered so much ground on this show.
And we thought we were just going to be talking about short shorts.
Right.
And it's such a larger conversation. It's not just short shorts, folks. It's a revolution. It's a revolution. You are freeing your thighs and you are freeing people.
Listen, you helping yourself not be sweaty in the summer. So check it, y'all. Y'all know the deal. Please subscribe to Q Points on Apple Podcasts. The link is in the chat. And also leave us a star rating and a review. We'd really appreciate it. Make sure that you go on over to Podchaser. Also leave us a star rating and a review. You might be like, oh my God, I don't want to join another thing. But here's the thing. What's cool is it'll help you to easily discover more podcasts. And if you leave us a rating and review, it helps us to be discovered by more people. So if you like, I love Q Points, I support them, I want more people to hear them, go on over to Podchaser and leave us a star rating and a review. It does help to spread the word about the show. Listen, if you are on the YouTube, go ahead and make sure you subscribe and hit the notification button. If you are not on the YouTube, go on over to YouTube and subscribe and hit the notification button. And we got stuff. So 2 things while y'all are here. All right. We got a webinar coming up next Saturday. Sure. I'm doing Sacred Ministry, y'all. I am going to talk about Black gay DJs and house music history. It's going to free you because we're having that whole conversation too. That's been really interesting. But RSVP to attend Sacred Ministry with your boy. And we have a contest going on. So you can win free vinyl. I have dipped in to my personal stash and I am giving away 2, because I have 3. I'm giving away 2 copies of Wajid's Strength from the Dirt Tech Rec label. Wajid is a beast out of Detroit. So if you like, I love Jay Dilla, then you also love Wajid because Wajid was there with him. So
and what do they have to do to get this?
They have to click that link, go on over, and go ahead, enter your email address. We only asking you for your email address and you can enter to win. And then I'm going to send you free vinyl that you can have. It retails for $15. You getting it for your email address.
Come on now.
It's a thing. Last thing before we get on out of here. Sir Daniel is over on Mixcloud. And you need to be over there following Sir Daniel. His link is in the chat as well.
Yeah, I think I'm playing this Saturday. I think I'm gonna do a little something. I'm dipping into my hip house bag.
Oh, please do. Yes.
I'm dipping it's because I'm like, you know what? It's time. It's time for y'all to feel, just to get it was fun music, energizing. And then I'm dipping into some the clubbier house moments, and then dipping into some of the harder, house jams that we all love. So it's just gonna be fun. It's gonna be a great time.
Love it, love it, love it. Listen, y'all, it's been amazing. Sir Daniel, what you be telling the people?
As I always say, kids, in this life, you can either pick up the needle or you can let the record play. I am Sir Daniel.
And that is Sir Daniel. And I'm J Ray. Peace.
And this is Q Points. We love y'all, and we'll check you out next week.
Peace.